Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Happy Even After podcast. And I have a VIP guest with me today. So let me introduce you to Judge Anthony Bompiani, who is a retired judge and family law attorney turned strategist, consultant, and coach. He's been helping people in the areas of divorce and custody for nearly 20 years. In addition to working with clients one-on-one and in small groups, he has created online training programs to help people around the world who are struggling with divorce and custody battles. He was named to the National Trial Lawyers Top 100 list for exemplary performance during his career. But he has sass, he tells it like it is, and he's a champion of the underdog. He's also kind of a TikTok celebrity. So we are here to talk about all things in the courtroom with Judge Anthony. Welcome.
What's up, Renee? What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
So we have the next half hour to get inside a judge's head. So this is going to be fun.
Absolutely.
So
I don't know how deep you want to go with that.
Right. So, let's start with this because everyone who gets divorced thinks they want to win. Like, is there actually winning in divorce?
From my perspective, I think winning in divorce is winning outside of the courtroom and after divorce. That's why I think what you're doing is so cool, because that's where the winning is. Obviously, like with divorce, you want to make sure that like you get your fair share of the assets, that you get your fair share of alimony if you're entitled to it, whatever. But ultimately speaking, that stuff is really secondary. So long as you maintain the mindset, the happiness, peace of mind, the energy and the courage to move forward in your life, that sort of thing. So I think that's where the winning is.
As a judge, and you were on the bench for what, 5 years?
Yes.
So did you ever have a really hard time deciding how to resolve a case?
No, I didn't. I didn't. I don't know. I think part of the reason, like I was always very good at separating myself, and I'm sure you probably are too with your cases. And I think that's natural as being an attorney. But one thing I did in my career too that really helped with that was I worked part-time for a period of like 5 or 6 years at the public defender's office. So I did a ton of like really nasty criminal cases that were really like, if you would let them get to you, they could really harm you, So I kind of got really good at separating, my work from my life. So when I was on the bench, I would just, the moment of time that I was there listening to cases, I would just listen to it like they were giving me data, facts as data, assessing credibility, and then making my decision. And then that was it. The moment I got off the bench, I forgot about it.
All right. So then that just leads to the next question, credibility. How does a judge actually assess credibility when so much of what happens in family court is a he said, she said?
Yeah. I think in family court, I think the best thing that people need to do when they're being credible is, mannerisms obviously are important. And it's, like your pace of your tone of voice, your pace, your eye contact, all of that sort of stuff. But however, I think most judges know that there is an element of nervousness when people get into the courtroom. So that's one of the reasons, like with the things that I teach people, it's because my theory always is like, I want them to be able to show their true self to the judge and to the courtroom. I don't want them to go in so nervous because, people have nervous laughs, they have nervous facial expressions, and it might not have anything to do at all with credibility. It might be just nerves. But if you're in front of the wrong judge, they might look at that as a credibility issue. So that's one of the things I like to try to coach people and consult people with is preparing them for what's going to happen, them learning ways to like maintain their sanity, how to, stay calm in court. Because that's the unfortunate thing is a lot of those things that have to do with nerves are also tells with credibility, Now the other way that judges do it obviously is like with a good cross-examination, whenever the other attorney, shows that the person's lying or not telling the whole truth or exaggerating or, tending to make up stories. That's all really big too. So that's another thing. Like, how it goes when you're on cross-examination. If your client can handle cross-examination, you're going to have a leg up in the case, like big time.
Yeah.
Or if you're going against an attorney who doesn't know how to do it,
So true. So
Yeah.
I always used to instruct my clients that if we're in a trial, the facial expressions they make when they're sitting at the table and not actually testifying are almost more important than what's happening up there, because I watch judges watch them when the spouse says something that might be inflammatory. They look and see the reaction. And when I have a client who's rolling their eyes and throwing their pencil down, and like I want to like jab them with my elbow or like stomp on their foot with my heel, because the judges are watching that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, you're 100% right. And the thing that people don't realize, unless they have an attorney who's going to tell them this, is like they could be using that time to really help the lawyer, really like writing notes or reminding the lawyer of a piece of evidence or a witness or someone, that can counteract or go against what the current witness is saying, instead of like laughing or huffing or rolling your eyes. Like, you could really be helping your lawyer at that time.
Yeah, it's so true. And writing notes and sliding it over at the right time, and not like elbowing your lawyer and like stabbing the paper, because your lawyer's trying to listen too. And it's, keeping really detailed, organized notes makes all of the difference than like the chicken scratch that you're underlining and circling it over and over as if that's going to make more of an impact.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know how you handle that, but what I would always do would, right before they would start the hearing, I would just tell my client, here's a piece of notebook paper, write down everything you want to write down. If you can slide it to me, great. But please know that at some point I'm going to turn to you and say, is there anything like you want me to ask or cover or whatever? And it's not obviously that you're going to listen and follow every single thing. Maybe there's something that's irrelevant or whatever. But for the most part, that's how I would always handle that, because I mean, it's a sensitive time for those people. So if you don't kind of guide them, they're going to be reacting how a human being would normally react in a high stress situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about narcissists, because we hear that buzzword all the time. Everyone thinks that their spouse is a narcissist, and a lot of people have narcissistic tendencies. But as a judge, does that actually even matter when you're deciding custody?
I don't think judges consider that when they're deciding custody. What I always tell people about is to, instead of worrying about the term or the diagnoses, worry about the behaviors, and only the behaviors that are impacting the best interest of the children. I mean, I do a lot of videos on TikTok and Instagram about narcissism. And of course, there's always the trolls that say, only, I don't even know the stats, but however many percentage of people are diagnosed as narcissists. I think it's like 2% or something like that. And my argument to that is always, I don't really care if they are or they aren't. If my client or somebody is dealing with these behaviors, because they're just as impactful in court as they are out of court, then I want to try to coach them how to get through that and how to deal with that. But as far as proving it in court, I don't, I mean, how it goes with any sort of, mental health diagnoses. Even if they have one, even if they are a diagnosed narcissist, if they're treating it and they're taking care of that, then that's probably not even going to be an issue. So for people like that, I think personally that it's more important for them to learn how to deal with those people outside of court, and then how to prepare themselves going into court to deal with all of the stuff, because you're going to be getting the charm, the lies, the like just how those kinds of people are. And if you don't know how to deal with that, you're going to play right into it. So I think that's more important than the actual, word.
So what would be your top tips on how to deal with someone who's high conflict outside of court?
I have a whole, basically a communication guidance, I guess, for people. And basically what it is anything that is harassing in nature, meaningless, meaning has nothing to do with the children. If there's a custody issue, then basically you just ignore all of that. Now, sometimes judges unfortunately order that they have to respond in some way. So then my guidance is always just respond minimally, like just to respond, to tell the court that you did respond. Next, any type of false allegation that someone makes to them, I always like for people to use the phrase, that's not true. And the only reason why I even tell people to say that is to basically, because sometimes people get afraid that like, if they don't deny it, that like they're going to go into court and then all of a sudden the judge is going to be like, well, you didn't deny it, so it's true. I think that's crap, to be honest with you, but to make people feel better about it, that's the way I tell them to respond. No counter argument, no counter punch, no nothing. Just, that's not true. And then let it go. And then people say, well, what happens if, they come back and say, yes, it is true. Well, you don't, like, you're not there to convince them. You're not there to win the argument against them. Like, you're there to set up yourself for court. And then a lot of times people will get like mixed messages from a narcissistic type person, something little in the email about the children that they need to respond to, and then some other harassing stuff or whatever. Well, in those situations, you really got to take your time and you got to really go through and look at what's worthy of a response or not. And then finally, if there's ever anything at all that's remotely close to being positive, I like to talk about it like you're training a dog. It's like if you're trying to train the dog to go to the bathroom outside, when they go to the bathroom outside, you're going to praise them, give them a treat. But even for like the youngest puppy who might not know that yet, if they go to the bathroom by the door, you might even like praise them or give them a treat or whatever. It's the same with people like that. If they do anything remotely close to a productive conversation, then you must respond productively back. And the reason why is, one of the most important currency to them is your attention, right? So anytime you give them their attention, that behavior is going to be reinforced. But people don't understand that also your most valuable currency is also your attention. So, and the cool thing is you get to decide on who you have to give that to, right? That's one thing that we have that we can really control that. So that's why bad behavior, take away your attention. It's like training a dog. Somewhat good behavior, give them your attention, have a productive conversation. And then the other area other than communication is obviously boundaries and mindset, that you got to have firm boundaries. You got to protect yourself. And it's not always like people think that, having good boundaries means that you're going to be able to control their behavior. Like that's not it at all. It's so that you can prevent them from controlling your behavior. You know what I mean? When to react, when not to react, when to keep yourself open for communication, and then finally your mindset. Your mindset is huge. I mean, it's huge with non-narcissistic type people in a divorce. I went through a divorce. My ex is not narcissistic at all. And I really, it's just a natural thing to have mindset issues. You can really get down a rabbit hole of doom and gloom if you let yourself do that. And the problem is that leads to more doom and gloom. So those are basically the three areas of the communication, the boundaries, and the mindset that are very, very important if you're dealing with someone like that.
Judge Anthony, we see all the time people bring up the term parental alienation. That's another buzz phrase. Mm-hmm. And do you think that that's overused in the courts?
Yeah, I think it's probably overused. It's funny that you mention it because I've been getting a lot of crap recently on Instagram for even using that word from certain, victims groups, which I get it. Like, I understand why it's such a sensitive word. But the problem is it is used in the courtroom. And I feel I'm doing people a disservice if I'm not out there talking about it, telling them how to overcome false allegations for it, telling them, like, there are a lot of people that are abused by parental alienation, so telling people how to fight against parental alienation. I know, in the many different victims groups, they are not like, they came at me pretty hard on Instagram and a little bit on TikTok, which is fine. Like, I get it. Everybody has their position and their mission. But is it overused? Yeah, it is overused. I mean, that's like the go-to, that's like the go-to to say if someone is, If a child doesn't want to be with the parent, or the parent's protecting the child from the parent, then it's automatic parental alienation. But the problem is in what I try to tell people on Instagram, and again, this is just my opinion. I'm not the knower of everything, but my opinion is if you eliminate that term, it's just going to be another term that people use. So the bottom line is you have to just know how to overcome false allegations and to overcome when it's being done to you. So yeah, I do think it's overused, but I also think, I don't think that's anything we're ever going to be able to control, because I think if that term's eliminated, then it's just going to be another term, that they're going to replace with it.
What are the things that, or the behaviors that you've seen that people have done that actually harm their position or custody case? Like, what's the stuff that they absolutely should not be doing?
One of the first things I always tell people, and I get a lot of blowback from this too, is to not post on social media. That can really take a case that should be very lopsided and make it even. Because I kind of always explain things with family court. Like, it's almost like, you're basically like playing in like a muddy sandbox, I call it, and if they're the ones sitting in there throwing around all the dirt and the mud, if you jump in there with them, then the court's not going to know like who's doing what. It's like if everybody that's in a custody battle has kids. It's like if you have multiple kids and you hear your kids arguing upstairs, and then when you come upstairs, they're like accusing each other back and forth, like he did this, she did this, he did that, he did this. And then at some point as a parent, you're going to be like, look, both go to a timeout, both do, and that's how it is with court when you're always, attacking and doing like the subtweets and like the social media posts about your ex, regardless of if it's true or not. Because I hear a lot of people say, well, if it's true, then you can't really do anything about it. Yeah, like that's fine. Like you can't from a free speech or a slander or defamation case, but you still, like I always say, I've never seen anyone in my life win a case on social media, but I've seen a bunch of people lose them. So my theory always is, and you probably have the same theory, as long as you're following the rules of ethics and the laws, you do everything you can to win and to get a favorable result for your client. And if one of those things is not posted on social media, then I just think it's smart not to do it.
So that's what our office actually does, is if we're looking at a custody trial or hearing or battle, we're looking on the other spouse's social media page, and we have won cases because of things that people have posted, because the judge thought that, this person can't make good parenting decisions because they can't control themselves and they're disparaging their other spouse, and everything else about them lined up for them to really be a really good parent, except they could not control themselves because they were looking for that sympathy. People lose cases based on what they post on social media.
Absolutely. And like I said, I've never seen anybody win one. I just don't think it's possible. So that's a big thing. Courtroom demeanor is pretty big, just because it's such a triggering topic for people, understandably so. But if you react wrongly, that can kind of make the court see things differently. And then all of the stuff, whatever the laws are in your state, all of the different things, that have to do with the best interest of the child, like abuse or primary care or, whatever your laws are, those are all of like the biggest things. But those two things, your demeanor and your reactions in courtroom and your social media, and then also the way you communicate, if you're communicating in writing, if you're always disparaging your spouse or your ex or whatever, if you're doing it in front of the children, like that's always an ultimate no-no. Those are like the big hot topic, simple things that can be adjusted rather easily.
So what do you think about, I want to get inside your judge's brain for a second, because
Yep.
so often a client thinks that if they hire the so-called pitbull lawyer, the one who pounds their chests and stomps their feet and yells the loudest, they're going to get the best representation and the best result. And
Yeah.
as a lawyer, we know, like, when we see that person come into a case, we're like, oh, great, this case is going to be longer and more expensive than it needs to
Yep.
be. What are your thoughts on the person, not the person who hires the lawyer, but that lawyer, that pitbull lawyer who comes into the case just pounding, putting on the whole horse and pony show, as to how it impacts their case?
Yeah, I think from a judge's perspective, I don't think that that has a huge impact on the case. I think where that has a huge impact on the case is, number one, like you said, the expenses. That's huge, because a lawyer like that who's just going to be like attacking you like crazy, you could go broke trying to compete with that, right? That's number one. Number two is basically going to be your exhaustion from dealing with it.
Yeah.
You're eventually just going to be like, you're either like, it's going to be like a fight or flight type thing. You're either going to hurt yourself by fighting and reacting the wrong way, or you're going to just throw in the towel and be like, this is it, I give up. Now, it doesn't have to be like that. I'm not saying that those kinds of lawyers can't be beaten. I mean, like, I'm sure you've beaten ones like that all the time, and so have I. But those are the two big things. And then also, like, and I kind of mentioned this already with the other two topics that I covered, but the way you react is huge. I mean, because it can be very frustrating, to someone, to have someone like that. Especially the way they can act towards you in court, or like if you've never read a letter from one of those people that are just so nasty, But people have to understand that people like that are basically, in my opinion, trying to do two things. Number one, they're trying to run up the bill because they're trying to make a ton of money, because you can, and they're trying to put on a show for their client.
Yep.
They're trying, like, a lot of times those people say shit that's not even like relevant. And it gets under the other side's skin, and it makes their client happy because their client's like, oh yeah, they put them in their place or whatever. Legally, it didn't really do anything, but it's like any fight or any competition. If you can get inside the mind of your opponent, you probably have a better chance of winning.
Yeah, so true. What are your thoughts on starting any divorce with this thought that both parents should be equal parents, that there should be 50-50 custody? Because I see this all of the time with a lot of the women who are in my circle or in my private Facebook group. They think that because they've been the primary caregiver, maybe they were a stay-at-home mom, that they should automatically get a majority of the parenting time, and dad should have just have some sort of visitation plan. As a judge, what's your take on that?
I think, as long as there's no long length of time that the parent hasn't been involved in the child's life, as long as there's no abuse history, and as long as there's no violent criminal history or some sort of drug and alcohol or mental health issue that's not being treated, as long as any of those things aren't in existence, I think you should start with a 50-50 presumption. I really do. And I heard at least once that, and it's the same kind of people who are kind of angry with me about the parental alienation thing, which again is fine. I've also heard whispers of the fact that a 50-50 is a method of abuse. And it, like, I understand why people feel that way, because, until you've walked in their shoes, I guess. But I don't, in a regular case, like I said, without all of that stuff, all that negativity, 50-50. I mean, I can't imagine not having 50-50 with my boys.
Yeah.
50-50 is not enough. Now, I say not enough, not ever wanting more, because I think they need their mom 50% of the time. But I mean, let's face it, any night that you're not kissing your kids goodnight is too many nights, even if it's one night a week. I mean, I do week on, week off, and the week that I'm not with them, it's been 4 years, and it still sucks, from a parent's perspective. You know what I mean? So I can't wrap my head around how, if the circumstances are like the negativity that I covered, if you don't have those circumstances, I can't wrap my head around why there wouldn't be 50-50, or why there wouldn't at least be a presumption of 50-50. I guess in another one that I didn't mention was distance between households. Obviously, like if there's a long distance,
Right.
you can't always do 50-50. But other than that stuff, I think there should be a presumption for it, because I think it's what's in the best interest of the child, because none of us are perfect parents, and we all have certain weaknesses, but the other thing is we all have certain strengths.
Yeah.
Like my ex does certain things with the kids where her strengths as a parent in certain areas are so much better than mine.
Yeah.
Mine are like, I'm more of like the disciplinarian. If there's an issue, she'll like call me or text me, and we'll try to come at it from a different angle. But parents have different strengths that need to be exploited and different weaknesses that need to be made up by the other parent's strengths.
Yeah. And that means that you don't have to parent exactly alike, because so often I also hear, well, they're not doing it my way, or there's different rules in different houses, and you don't need to have the same rules in each house in order for a co-parenting relationship to work. And I agree with you completely. I think that absolutely, like I have a really good co-parenting relationship with my son's dad. I'm grateful for that. And he's the first person I call if something comes up or I need help with something. And I wouldn't want it any other way. And I get that some people just can't have that, and it's high conflict and it's not possible, but a lot of people just don't want it. They don't want to have, and I think that that's a different conversation, because yes, you're going to get the hate when you say that everyone should have it, but most times, I'd say more times than not, there's no reason not to put something like an equal parenting plan in place.
Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And you hit the nail on the head with the rules. Like, it doesn't have to be the same rules, but you just need to have a respect for each other, especially when it's concerning the kids or disciplining the kids or whatever. Like my ex and I don't have the same sets of rules. I mean, I can't even give you an example of difference, but I know we're not completely the same. But if there's ever an issue, we'll get on the phone, and you have to have like a unified front if you're doing it the right way. You know what I mean? Like, you have to respect, if they are grounded for something in the other house, like you can't just, even though you might not have that same rule, it's not really effective if they come to dad's then, and it's just like a free for all,
right.
So yeah, I think the 50-50 thing, if the circumstances are right, I think it should be presumed.
All right, Anthony, what do you have out in the world helping people through their custody cases? I know you have offering a ton, and you have clients from around the world. So share all of that here.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way, and the easiest way is to my content on social media, on TikTok and on Instagram. On TikTok, it's Judge Anthony, and on Instagram, it's Anthony Bompiani. And then I do a free masterclass. Sometimes it's live, sometimes it's recorded, but it mimics a live, so you get a feeling of it. And that is how to beat a narcissist in custody court without going crazy. And that is at webinar.judgeanthony.com. And then my main program is basically my course. It's called Custody Case Mastery. And it basically works through what I call the 4 pillars of success for any custody or divorce case. And that's mindset, communication, preparation, and presentation. And my theory is if you can master those 4 things, the chances of you getting a favorable result in and out of court are going to be a lot higher. And that is at mastery.judgeanthony.com. That's a paid course.
And so this is information that you're providing as a former lawyer, or still a lawyer, as a former judge. So this is tried, true practice. You've been through it. You've lived it yourself personally. You've worked it professionally. So you know what you're talking about. Yeah,
I know what I'm talking about. And the cool thing is like when I first created the program, I was hoping and praying that I could, because I know what is in my mind works, like you said, I've been doing it through my career. And then I also did a lot of it in my own case, and not even necessarily in the courtroom, but outside of the courtroom stuff too. But I knew that it worked. It was just if I was going to be able to convey it. And then the testimonials started rolling in, and they still do. And like you said, I mean, I'll get random testimonials from people. I have people in Israel that message me thanking me, like Denmark, Ireland. I have a lot of clients in Canada, some in the UK, some in Australia. So it's cool. And the interesting thing is like, you know, the laws are different in all of those areas, but we're all human beings. Like, we're all the same. We all react the same. We all care about our kids deeply. We all like hate the divorce thing because even if it's the best thing for you, it still hurts. You know, like in my divorce, my divorce was my idea, but it was still brutal. It was still like really taxing to go through, you know? So that happens all around the world. That's just how we are wired as human beings. You know, our affection for our kids and a romantic relationship that's destroyed, and you know, and then going into court when we don't know what to expect or what to do, and going through the fight or flight and all that. So yeah, it's a cool thing to be doing, and it's neat. I love getting the success stories. They mean a lot to me.
And there's so many of them out there. I highly suggest that everyone follows Judge Anthony on TikTok. You're not only informative, it's really funny too. Like it's entertaining. So I don't want to leave that out there.
Thank you. Yeah, it gave me like a release to like just be myself on there. I mean, I look like how I'm dressed. Like, this is just me. And then like the stuff I do, I've always been like a little silly, you know, ever since I was a kid. So it's fun to use that stuff, because let's face it, you know, other than being educated in these circumstances, you also have to be able to smile, and laughter is kind of the best drug, you know, for that. So that's kind of what I try to do.
So true. So final question is, what is one tip that you have for someone going through their divorce and how to survive it with their sanity intact?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you when you're going through it, you have to realize that even though it might seem like the worst thing in the world, and it's temporary. So you have to be able to manage yourself so that your future self will thank you. You know what I mean? So that you don't destroy your reputation or your reputation with your kids or with your community or the court or whatever. And when I say that, I don't mean like, you know, with smear campaigns and that kind of crap, because none of that stuff matters to me. I just mean like, you can't destroy your foundation, I guess a better word than reputation, because you're gonna have the rest of your life to live, and this is temporary. And like, you have to know that, like, I always tell people to look at it as like, you're not just going through it, you're growing through it. And you have to know that this is temporary. What can I learn about myself from this, so that when this is all past, that I'm in the best position to live my life the way I want to live my life, you know? So great. I think
that's great advice. Absolutely great. So thank you so much, Judge Anthony.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here and sharing all of your behind the scenes of being sitting on the bench.
Absolutely.